Okay, we are recording. This is July 21st, CHAOSS Community Weekly Call. Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Elizabeth. Nice to see you. Please put your self in the attendee list if you have not done so, and let us know how you're doing or what's going on. It's ridiculously hot in Ohio still. It has been for days, but hopefully it's not as hot where you are.
It's hot.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Kind of hot everywhere, it feels like. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with this very first item on the agenda, which is general documentation for CHAOSS. And this came up in one other meeting. I don't remember which one now, but where we were discussing, evolution. Yeah, it was evolution, I think.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about this, Sean?
Yeah, we chose the word reviews for pull requests and merge requests across platforms, and it is often confused with code reviews, which we discussed when we chose the term, but landed on reviews. So that glossary could be important as part of the release, just so that it's more clear what we're talking about.
What is the glossary? Is this a new document?
It would, well, I think I haven't conceptualized it in my mind.
Okay.
I think maybe it would go, I don't think there's a whole ton of these items, so perhaps it would be the first thing in the release or the last thing. An alternative would be to embed the decoding in the names of the metrics. So just to, like, for example, with reviews, simply to say these are referred to as pull requests on GitHub and merge requests on GitLab, and leave it there. But I think when people see a list of the metrics and they see reviews, it's immediately, I think, unclear.
I see. So it'd be with the release, basically.
Yeah, and I really think that's the only metric name that is ambiguous.
Can you just put an asterisk on it for now until we get more than one? Like for creating a new glossary?
Yeah, we could do that. Would it?
You could just make a note of it in the release notes for now until we have a glossary document created.
What if we changed the name of that metric to pull/merge requests? Since it's the only one. Well, I mean, because that would cover the two major platforms. I'm off the top of my head, I don't recall what Bitbucket does, but it's probably one of those two.
I would +1 that. I've always felt the review name was confusing.
So
for what it's worth, Bitbucket calls it a pull request as well, from what I recall and just saw on their site. So +1, but it's pretty ambiguous.
So like that, pull/merge request, I just put it in the minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I don't think we actually have any others that are unclear or actually misleading.
Yeah, enough to constitute the formation of a glossary for
right.
one term.
Right, so maybe that's the wrong, like as I think about it, maybe just call them pull/merge requests and move on.
Okay. I'm going to give you, Sean, that.
I'm going to ask Kevin, though, for some direction on the way to do that will cause him the least pain. Is just changing the name okay, or will I be causing you pain?
Yeah, no pain here.
Okay.
So the only thing that'll happen on my end is that I'll make a note in the code release reviews that the name change occurred.
Okay. Is there the release notes, separate release note? Aren't the release notes by working group?
Yep, in your issues, you'll have one. Just say what you did in there, and I'll add it.
Roger that.
And we're pretty certain that that term is not used in any other working group?
Yes.
Or metric? Okay.
Pretty sure too, yeah.
Yeah, and if it is, it's code reviews, I think, might be a metric, which let's just add to the confusion. And Kevin, I should change this in the repository for evolution, right?
Yes.
All right.
And then I guess as we are going through the release, we should, as Elizabeth was mentioning, there is a chance that other metrics are actually referencing the code review metric. So we might want to scan that and make sure that we change all references to it.
Well, code reviews is actually a metric that's released that is a separate thing entirely, compounding the confusion. So there are 4 metrics that are released: reviews accepted, reviews declined, and reviews duration, that would be affected by this change. And my suggestion would be that I change the name of both the file and the heading in the metric. Does that break anything?
No, I don't think so.
So that is what I shall do.
I was just pointing out that other metrics may reference those metrics by the previous name. So that's not unusual. So we might want to scan some of our documents to make sure if we're pointing towards those other.
I can do a search on, actually, okay. Yeah, I can do a search on all the working groups for references to reviews. In fact, if I looked at the released metrics alone, I would find those phenomena, right? So I could look on the website for that.
Yes.
All right. I'll be sort of softly working on that while we continue with the agenda.
Okay, fair enough. Is there anyone that would have an opinion about this that is not in this meeting that we should leave
Daniel
in?
here?
Or
I think Daniel would be the person who was in the discussion where we originally named the reviews, who is also here.
Was I involved in the discussion?
I thought you were. I know Jesus was. I thought you were also engaged in the evolution working group at that time, but perhaps not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Basically, I agree that there is definitely some confusion here. So I think it makes sense. But yeah, and indeed, I can.
okay.
I can bring other discussions here if you want. So one of them is related to the code review itself, because sometimes we say code review for the whole process. Sometimes code review is just for the +1 or -1, for instance, in Gerrit, as they have certain process there. Pull request seems to be like the whole process as a whole. But if you move this to a Gerrit discussion, for instance, in Gerrit, as far as I remember, they only have like one. You only produce one commit for each of the pull request processes. While if you compare this to GitHub, in a pull request you may have several commits at the same time. So then there's a difference as well. So I don't have a proper answer. It's what I'm trying to say here.
Is Garrett okay? I don't. Should I do a little research into how Garrett works and if this would break the definitions of pull and merge requests in any way, or do you?
I can help in that research because I have.
Okay.
I mean, oh, Ildiko, you want to say something?
You know, I think.
Well, we use Gerrit, for example, with the OpenStack community, and I know about several other communities as well. And the pull and merge requests are very different concept from how Gerrit works in terms of the commits and change sets or patch sets rather. I don't know how much. Is the goal here to describe every process and sort of have a, I don't know, phrasing of a metric for each, or we want to try to find something that would somewhat apply to all, which I think might be a tougher one?
So in general, like prior to Garrett's entry to the discussion, these things were largely the same. I think what is different is that a pull or merge request on Gerrit, if I'm understanding it correctly, is basically equivalent to a commit. Is there, so it's like every commit gets reviewed? Is it something like that, Daniel?
Actually, I mean, can I ask a quick question? I mean, do
Sure.
you mind like sharing or point us to a page where we're looking at the terminology for reviews? Because
Sure.
where we're getting confused with reviews and code reviews.
That is the confusion. Yes. So this is, I'll put a link in for the reviews accepted metric, which is one of them. So this is pull request or merge requests accepted.
I mean, Ildiko, correct me if I'm wrong. It's maybe the better term here is not just reviews being accepted, but changes being accepted, right? Like, I think like in Garrett land, like you use a term, like you said, Ildiko, like patches, but those are basically changes, not necessarily just reviews.
Yeah, well,
So,
sometimes I think at least with the teams where I was involved with or am involved with, I think every now and then some people say review to the patch or, well, commit, or, well, there are a lot of terms that people are basically just throwing around and we all mean the same thing. But I think change is probably accurate, as at the end of the day, it's some kind of a change to a code base or documentation base or anything that you have in a Git repository and you're trying to propose something to change it. So that might be a good compromise, because in other terms, if you look into the GitLab workflow with pull requests, which is practically a fork, which has multiple commits and whatever other things, and you try to map that fully to the Gerrit workflow where you have one commit and several versions of that one particular commit until it's good enough for the reviewers to actually merge it. Yeah, that's a tough process. But if we concentrate on the fact of having a change in flight, that when it lands, it changes the code base or any other stuff in the repo, I think that's probably a good way forward.
In the definition for reviews, which I can't remember if I posted, it does say reviews correspond to pull requests in the case of GitHub, and merge requests in the case of GitLab, and to code reviews, which I'm not sure that kind of happens in the context of a code pull request sometimes, or in some contexts change sets in the case of Gerrit. Does the term change set resonate with you at all?
I rather heard patch set as opposed to change
Okay.
set. I think it's a more often used term, but again, I might be wrong, as I assume as many communities who are using the same tool, as many versions or variations of the terminology that they, or vocabulary that they also use. But at least I myself usually hear and use patch set rather than change set. But
So
I don't
if
know
I
how
have,
much that's an issue.
I
if
would
I have,
say, Ildiko, sorry for interrupting, but I would say that change set is the whole number of iterations of all of the patch sets, right? So a patch set is one of each of the iterations. Change set is the whole process.
Yeah, that might be.
Okay.
So I think maybe this discussion has to be postponed for the next evolution meeting, but one more question. If I have 8 commits and in GitHub, I would run them as a pull request, that because they're fixing all one issue and they're related. In Gerrit, am I creating sort of 8 of those
You can.
patches, or can I bundle those 8 commits together?
So you always have 8 patches. You can structure them as a chain, Or in Garrett, you can have the same topic for them, and then it puts them into kind of the same group in terms of visualization. If those commits are dependent on each other, then you usually choose to organize them into a chain. But those are still separate commits, and you review them separately and merge them separately. Does this answer your question?
Yeah, it sounds more like a way of managing commits individually than it does a parallel to a polar merge request. I mean, it just sounds like a fundamentally more granular way of managing changes, but ultimately mapping to individual commits. So I've never used Garrett, so I don't know, but it sounds more like a commit process than a polar merge request process. But I've never done it, so I don't have any experience to base that on.
When we've tried to match them internally, we've treated it as a single commit. In terms of having commit, like pull request versus changes on Git or Garrett rather.
Just to bring some more context, then we have other communities as the same community or the Linux kernel that are using the mailing list. Then you have a patch, which is typically a file. And then you have a patch set, which is a set of patches. And then all of this is sent through a thread in a mailing list. So then you review if you add a specific flag in the answer of the email as review it by or act by. And then if you want to have another iteration of the whole patch set, you send another new thread. But they are using the concept of patch and patch set.
So it does sound like maybe the evolution group could take a look at this.
Yeah,
Sean.
I think we've taken up quite a lot of time on it in the general meeting, and it isn't resolved. So yeah, I agree.
What I was going to say. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I noticed that the reviews metric itself actually hasn't been released.
Well, there's a revision that was made, I believe. I believe it was previously released.
It's not on I don't see it on the website release. There are 3 reviews metrics: the reviews accepted, reviews declined, and reviews duration.
That seems like I'd have to look at the history.
Oh, I'm sorry, there's reviews. Yep, it's under review again, I'm sorry.
Okay, oh, no, yeah. So that would sound like a publication error, because I don't know how we could say things about reviews without defining them. Good.
Yeah, that was going to be my point. I didn't scroll down far enough. But yeah, reviews is under review. Okay.
But it's a change to the existing metric is all.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we'll take that up in the next reviews evolution meeting.
And if anyone wants to join that conversation, Sean, remind everyone, when is that meeting happening?
I'm looking at my calendar. I think it might be. Hang on. Let me.
Oh, that's okay. I can look.
It's next week.
Yep, it's next week.
It's the 29th at 9 Central, 9 US Central.
Yep, that is correct.
Awesome. Oh, now I lost the minutes. Hold on. There we go. Okay, so I think we can move on then to D&I badging. Do we have anyone from that program on?
Well, that we do at the moment.
I was just wondering how the pilot program was going, and because I think it ended, so I just wanted to hear, but we will get that information from them next time.
I can tell you I pinged Matt Snell and Asta, and I know they got some really good feedback from both the sample submissions for a badge as well as their reviews. So I think what they're doing now is honestly just trying to incorporate that feedback into changes into the process. Awesome. I'm not sure what they're going to do next. If they're going to do, say, another pilot, based on the changes, that they make or what. So
Okay. We'll just wait to hear from them maybe next week
okay.
if they're around. All right, so let's talk about our mentorship programs. Google Summer of Code updates. It looks like Venu put in his updates into the minutes, so if you want to look at that.
And
So
I'd like to, yeah, I think
let us know what they're working.
there my internet was bad.
If we don't have any other Google Summer of Code students on who want to share, we can move on to, I see Tola's on for Outreachy. Tola, do you have any updates?
Yeah, okay. So currently I just sent what I've been working on. So I kind of did an overview, kind of an illustration on how the translation process using locals is being done. So I attached pictures and also documents, pictures and documents to each stage. So far I've been able to explain how to add the key and value content using namespaces. So a big advantage of using namespace is it enables you to add different contents without affecting the main reference language. So you could have up to 20 different languages that's been translated at the same time using, so currently the integration, currently I've been able to work on the integration using the locals API. I've done that. I've also been able to explain the locals and ground up work from using the crowdsource. Like I could share the project among different people, so you could just access it when you sign up on the platform. Yeah. I don't.
Yeah. So
the link I sent, can you access it? Because I'm currently not on my laptop here.
Yep, I can get it. I think we can all get
Okay.
it. And maybe we can connect this week, Tola, to start kind of talking about maybe ways that some of this can be implemented in the CHAOSS project, or at least portions of the CHAOSS project.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, think through how we can get that done. So I'll connect with you kind of offline.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Cool.
I'm sure that.
And I'd like to just say, for the mentors, could you encourage all of your mentees, all of the people participating in either Outreachy or Google Summer of Code to have those people make sure to post their blogging to the CHAOSS email list. So I know a number of them do on a regular basis, but I think we have 10 people involved as mentees. this summer. And I don't think I'm seeing 10 come across the email. I know it will create volume, but I think it's important for the mentees to kind of put their work out there in front of people and talk about it a little bit. I think it's easy just to blog and then not share it with folks. And so that's my thought. And I think that's kind of a requirement we've always asked. So
Yeah, I will remind my students to do that.
Okay. I guess we can move on to the Google season of docs update. It looks like we have an update in there already. We've submitted our selected candidates to the Linux Foundation people. So anyone want to talk about that?
I can talk about it. Yeah, I mean,
okay.
very briefly. So the CHAOSS project, right, submitted under the org of the LF. And so there's a smaller number of slots available for Google Season of Docs. And I think right now the LF is putting in the request for slots. So we've put forward the names based on our applicants in the CHAOSS project.
Did I miss an email? Who are the ones we submitted?
Maybe I won't say it on this call.
All right. Okay.
And then
because I might still missed an email.
Happy to connect with you out of this one. So and then so anyway, we should hear shortly just with respect to the total number of slots that Google will allocate to the LF, and then you get the Cascade, and then subsequently to the CHAOSS project. So that's where we're at right now.
So we won't have any updates on that until mid-August when we hear back, essentially.
Yeah, so in terms of the slots that are allocated from Google, I think that turnaround's pretty quick, to be honest with you. But so.
Okay. And then so moving on, the next thing, if we do we have anything else with our mentees, mentors, anything someone wants to bring up before we jump ahead?
No, good.
Okay. I just put this on the agenda as a carryover from last week, the CHAOSS and to-do collaborations, because I don't think we've made any. Like, I know I didn't do anything with any of this. So if someone else did, great, but I don't think we've really done anything. So I just wanted to kind of ask, what you all think would be a good next step to kind of keep these things moving forward so that we can loop Chris Anichek back into kind of what we've talked about. So I see there are several of us that are interested in talking about that. Do we want to schedule a meeting? Do we want to start a Google Doc? Like what would you all want to do?
My thought was, so remember I think there were maybe 3 things that came up between CHAOSS and the to-do group, and maybe it would be best to do them in sequence. So we do one at a time. And it seemed like the survey was that seemed like that had a pretty easy point of connection right out of the gate. And I don't think it would take a terribly long time to develop a relatively short survey, just in terms of, I think the survey was, if I remember, largely around the metrics or kind of the health indicators that OSPOs use, and then maybe how they use those health indicators, what they're doing internally. That was pretty much the aim of the survey, right?
Yeah, to see kind of what was important to them, what they would want to be interested in, or what they were interested in looking at. Well, let's just start a Google Doc then, and throw some ideas down, and then I'll loop in whoever had listed themselves as interested to be a part of the conversation. And if anyone else wants to be part of that, just add your name to the list, and we'll make sure to loop you in.
Just a quick question about that. I see there are 2 surveys mentioned. Are you going to have individual sessions for both, or are you going to discuss it in the same thread? Or is OSPO Landscape part of the community survey?
I think that was like the second of the three initiatives that we were thinking of doing with them. So I think maybe we'll hold on that, right, Matt? Matt G.
That was
Kind
my
of,
thought.
yeah. So that one we'll just kind of wait for a little bit. But if you're interested, by all means, put your name on there, and then we can pursue it, because the survey, like Matt said, won't take very long probably to finish that up. So.
Sophia, have you seen that landscape link that I just put in the chat? It's a slightly giant. So this is the CNCF landscape, and
oh yeah, I've seen this.
Yeah, okay. So Chris's thought was that we could create a landscape map for OSPOs. That would be, what are the technologies or programs that OSPOs should keep on their radar when trying to do open source engagement. So just kind of what needs to be in front of you, right? And so that was what that second one is, about developing a landscape for OSPOs.
Oh, great, thank you. That's quite relevant to us because we have way too many tools.
Okay. That one seemed a little different for us because CHAOSS might be one of the things, obviously, but it's not the entirety. So we'd have to figure out how we kind of cast the wide net to figure out how we think about technologies in the OSPO sense. So.
Yeah, I mean, that one's like, obviously I don't have a full context because I wasn't on the call, but that one seems like, I don't know how it fits in with our CHAOSS's mission. Like, that doesn't seem like community health or metrics related. Like, I feel like we're putting together, I'm trying not to be, I'm not trying to be pejorative. Like, why are we helping somebody put together like a marketing deck?
No, that's
like, yeah.
Totally fair. I mean, we had the same conversation. So, right, community health would be one of the components, but it's not necessarily the entirety.
Yeah, I don't want to be judging because your logo's not on there. Like, are you not important? That, like, I'm not sure if we want to get involved in that discussion. Like,
sure,
it's just odd. Like, but feel free to let me know if I'm missing something big. But
I think this is a work in progress. So the parameters are not defined. So things can't be missed maybe quite yet.
Yeah, I think Chris was just kind of throwing some ideas out into the ether to see, what would stick and what made sense. And so, yeah, everything is very written in pencil, we'll say. So definitely can be altered or changed to kind of fit a little bit better. And then the third initiative, which I didn't even move up from last week, was the badging part of that, which was still, again, kind of in the ether. But if you click on those cards, then you'll see like little badges. And so like we kind of had a discussion about how we could perhaps help them and them help us, like where we could collaborate on those badges for those cards. Specifically with regard to the D&I badging program, and then potentially like an overall health badge of some sort. So definitely something that needs to be worked out a lot. So again, it was just one of those ideas that we had. So we'll wait on that as well, Matt. I would think that's fair, right? To just kind of wait on that one as well. The survey was pretty cut and dry, like, okay, this is something tangible that we can work on, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Agreed.
Okay, and now it looks like we have another item on here. How much time do we have? Oh, good. Community reports. Sean G has community reports from Augur released. Look for an email today. Good job, Sean G.
So
anything else you want to say to that?
I was the one that Sean added stuff underneath. I added the title.
Oh.
So just as an update, we're meeting with, we're continuing to meet this week with folks from the Linux Foundation to help us develop the process by which people can request community reports. So again, these would be very, very high level, kind of one-page documents that organizations could request. The thing I was going to bring up is last week on the call, if you recall, we talked about metrics, or probably visuals is a better word, that is a composite set of metrics. And if you look in the minutes down below, go to like the top of page 5 in the minutes, you'll see an example visual there. So, and this is a visual Sean had used to put together for the Zephyr project using Augur. And so this is it's a composite view that integrates many different kind of granular or atomic chaos metrics into a view that is useful, particularly to the Zephyr project here, and maybe useful to others as well. So the talk was in the community report that we don't just provide kind of these atomic metrics, but we provide kind of a set of composite metrics, or a set of, you know, these composite views that can provide positive insight for the communities or the organizations that are making these requests. I would like to propose that we work to identify what those 4 or 5 visuals might be, because they'll require some explanation, as Sean has pointed out quite a bit. But if we have a page, we might want to just think about what that set of composite groupings might be. So it can be done now. We could have a different conversation somewhere else. But at some point, we have to settle on what those are.
In general, projects are keenly interested in new contributor retention. So around really and also responsiveness. So they view responsiveness to pull requests or issues as antecedents to retaining new contributors. And so the 3 reports that we've released are focused first on pull requests, including volume, number of so we incorporate the total volume, those merged, those not merged, the response, the time to first response, not including bots for each type, and time to last response, including not including bots for each type, and then the time to close for each type of pull request. So there are a number of metrics that are in there, and then those, you could organize it. We do it by year because that's what projects asked for. And in the case of Zephyr, we did a competitive analysis of 5 other projects in their space that they didn't want named on the report, so that they're not named. They're just projects like A, B, C, D, E, or something like that. So those are the kinds of things people have been asking for.
So you had mentioned PRs. I think the graph on that page 5 is around issues. Is it right? Issues.
No.
Yeah.
Is it?
I think so. But I could see issues and PRs both having a representative graph.
Time to response. Yeah. Oh, go. So this is a first this is a first time contributor graph. So
okay,
all the people in a given month who made their first contribution. So this gives you a rate of first time contributors, and it identifies what that first contribution was.
Okay.
This can be filtered to not include. So there was some discussion about whether or not, for example, comments ought to be included as a first contribution. In the case of this community, they wanted that.
So is there when you were talking with folks at Zephyr or any of the other places, were there, so first time contributors, there was kind of a desire to see, under the, is there another high level topic?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's several that go along with this, right? You can't display everything in one graph. So the next thing that folks were interested in are repeat contributors. So how many of these, so there's a separate report or graph that shows how many of these first-time contributors contributed again, or at least one other time. And that is also a parameter. You could say 5 counts as a repeat contributor.
Yep.
And so that report might, if you have to choose between them, the new contributor retention or repeat contribution may be more interesting than all first-time contributors. Does that make sense?
It does. So I'm also looking at Georg and Daniel, like as you are doing this on a day-to-day basis. Are there, sorry?
Sean, I have a question. How old is the Z4 project or the ecosystem? Because
Uh,
that can also play in the contribution, the code-based contribution.
yeah, absolutely.
How old is it?
Absolutely. Zephyr came to GitHub, I want to say mid 2017. I believe the first report we did started in 2017 on pull requests. We've done these on longer running projects. And so, for example, we've got one project we ran it on that was at least 8 years old. And so a new contributor, the way that the logic is written is anyone who hasn't contributed before. So if I want to look for it, if I want to report on a 2-year window, you're going to see the 2-year window. But if you've made a contribution anytime before that 2-year window, you're not a first-time contributor, according to the CHAOSS metric definition. So you can window the report without compromising the definition of the metric.
Okay.
I agree with you. First-time contributors on newer projects, it's a different thing, and that's why I also think it's important for long-running projects to look at contributions for the whole history, even if they're only interested in new contributors at a particular time period, so that you don't count wrong.
Is that something we allow for in that questionnaire? Or do we just pull that information from the data?
These are some of the things that I want to discuss the next time we meet up with Annie.
Okay, gotcha.
I think it's pretty hard to put in a Google Doc the nuances and complexities here, and I think it's easier to talk about it with these kinds of examples. So whenever that conversation happens, we can update her and have that discussion together.
So then I was also looking at Georg and Daniel. So, right, I mean, these community reports, they're certainly not, they don't paint the picture of an entire landscape of how to understand health, obviously. So part of what I'm trying to do, I think what we're trying to do with these reports is just get information in front of people that
get off of square one.
Yeah, get off of square one. So are there things in your day-to-day lives that you are hearing people asking for on a regular basis over and over again?
One thing that I know we don't have data for, but that I hear a lot about is understanding the user base of our projects, as things like downloads, and how often is a project cloned on GitHub? How many users does the software have?
And as you know, cloning is tricky, right? Because you have to have rights on the project beyond 0 to get that data.
Exactly. And so I'm just thinking out loud, if that is something we could ask for, to say, hey, if you want this data, can you give us
API key?
API key, then that is something I think would create a lot of value. Now I understand there's the challenge.
No, I agree. And I'll tell you, I've been working with Kate for years and I haven't gotten access or an API key from her yet. So, I mean, I think projects protect that, even a read-only key pretty tightly usually, but I think it's worth it. I think it's a good idea to ask for it. Like if you would like, and you can only go back 2 weeks, so you have to gather it over time, but we can ask for those keys and see, because if you want to know what your clone count is, we can give that to you, but we need your API key. I agree, Guillaume. Okay. That would be great, and I think people want that.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't want to give us their API keys.
So I've jotted a few down in terms of first time and repeat contributors, user base. Are there others that spring to mind?
I mean, so the response, did you get response rate for pull requests and issues, or response time? Response time for both pull requests and issues they correlate fairly well with continued engagement. So if responses take very long, your likelihood of a continued contribution is lower.
Backlog management index or something along those lines? Are we closing slower than we are opening new issues and pull requests?
Okay. Okay. Super helpful. Thank you.
I'm trying to think of, I think there's a different subset of metrics that brand new projects are probably interested in, but we don't need to discuss that now.
Okay. Well, okay. That was super helpful. Thank you.
And we're right up on time to end. So we'll just continue this conversation next week.
Somebody's got some good tunes.
If anybody has anything else, speak now.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah,
everyone's
thanks,
good.
everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
See y'all later.
Bye.